So let me introduce the session of this webinar on creative writing in English amongst youths. This webinar has been hosted jointly by Digboi Mahila Mahavidalaya and Saint Vivekananda English Academy, Maligaon, Guwahati, and Swami Vivekananda International School, Kolhapur, Maharashtra. First of all, I'd like to welcome the inaugurator of this session, Dr. Arun Sharma, sir, the co-moderator Mitra Som Saha, and the panelists we have with us. We have a distinguished panelist, Dhruba Hazarika, who is an eminent writer, and Rashmi Narzary, an equally reputed writer known across the country. And first, I'd like to share with the audience, our virtual audience, the profile of the inaugurator, who is going to inaugurate the webinar today. Dr. Arun Sharma, principal, is a PhD in physics from Digboi University, and he has contributed a number of articles in national and international journals. And he is also a regular columnist, contributing his write-ups to various newspapers in Assam. Now, I'd like to request Principal Sir to address our audience in the virtual world with his keynote address and then declare the session open. Sir, welcome, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Kalita. Is it audible? Is it audible?
Yes, yes.
Hello.
Yes, loud and clear, sir.
Is it?
Everything is audible.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Good afternoon to all of you, respected resource persons. Hazarika sir, IAS retired writer, National Katha Awardee. Rashmi Narzary, writer, Sahitya Akademi Awardee. Mitra Som Saha, principal, Saint Vivekananda English Academy, and Dr. Jovial Kalita, Mahila Mahavidalaya, and other participants, student friends, that we are in the mood of learning something from the webinar organized by Digboi Mahila Mahavidalaya on the topic developing creative writing skills amongst youth in collaboration with Saint Vivekananda English Academy, Guwahati, and Swami Vivekananda International School, Kolhapur. It is a great privilege for us that we are going to organize this webinar in the pandemic situation all over the world, taking into consideration for benefit of the amongst students through developing creative writing skills. It is a very good topic that has been selected by our organizing team. So I thank you to all of you, to organizers of this webinar. It is indeed a very important point, not only for amongst youth. The skills should be known to explore the inherent talents of our young staff and our students. They have their own skills, they have their own methodology, they have their own inherent knowledge. Creativity is there, but how to use, in which platform they have to explore their own talents. It is the most important. So aim of this webinar is to give something skills to our young amongst youths, amongst students, research scholars, and other parts of our society to develop their creative nature in writing, and they have their own skills. We, in our age, also trying our best to give something to our society to know something or to explore something, and by the way of method of giving our efforts and endeavors to our young generation so that they will be able to scope it in their society, in their family, or state and nation as a whole. So in this opportunity, I would like to welcome all the resource person dignitaries, principals, and faculty members, and students, and youth especially. They are waiting eagerly to know something, many things for our resource persons. And I am happy to announce that this webinar on the topic developing creative writing skills amongst youths is declared from my end. Best wishes and congratulations. Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Principal Sir, for your keynote address and welcoming the guests and inaugurating this webinar this afternoon. Thank you once again. Now, I would like to say a few words about Mitra Som Saha, who is the co-host and co-moderator of this webinar. She is the principal of Saint Vivekananda English Academy, Maligaon, Guwahati, as well as the principal of Swami Vivekananda International School, Kolhapur, Maharashtra. And prior to her becoming full-time teacher here in Guwahati and taking charge of Swami Vivekananda International School in Kolhapur, she was a professor of physics working for several years in Mumbai. And she's an educationist who keeps on regularly organizing seminars, and this is, of course, it's webinars on different aspects of pedagogy meant for students both at the school and college level. So it's really a pleasure to have her co-hosting this webinar. Thank you, Mitra. And now I would like to request Mitra to say a few words about this webinar and the topic as well. Thank you, Mitra.
Hello, a very good evening to everyone who has joined us in this afternoon, a Saturday afternoon. I'm sure you have sacrificed your family time, time to relax, and you have decided to join us. Gratitude for that. Gratitude to Digboi Mahila Mahavidalaya, the principal, Dr. Arun Chandra Sharma sir, and to Dr. Jovial Kalita, the head of the Department of English, and an erudite speaker, an articulate person who has his awesome silo of vocabulary, if I should say. Many a times we refer to him as a Shashi Tharoor of our network. So he always has an enriching list of vocabulary. And frankly speaking, I have my heart beating hard today because I almost feel like a fish out of water amongst all the literary people. We have the two great and eminent panelists. We have Jovial. I do not know what I'll be doing amongst all these people with such awesome literary skills. So therefore, more than the role of a co-moderator, I take this evening as an evening of learning, this evening at the end of which I am sure that my learning curve will see an exponential rise. I'm happy to collaborate with Digboi Mahila Mahavidalaya, and we came together to organize this webinar. I believe these are few of the lessons learned during this pandemic. Had the pandemic not been there, we might not have ever thought of organizing something like this. And most importantly, the pandemic has made it all the more important that we collaborate, we share our best practices, and we light that small flame of knowledge wherever we can, share our experiences. After all, knowledge shared is knowledge squared. Thank you to everyone at Digboi Mahila Mahavidalaya. Thank you, Dr. Sarmah sir. Thank you, Dr. Kalita. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Over to you, Jovial.
Thank you so much for speaking so highly of me. I don't think I deserve the praise that you have heaped on me. But anyway, thanks anyway. Now I'd like to give a somewhat detailed introduction of one of the panelists who is in our midst, Dhruba Hazarika. Dhruba Hazarika is an Indian novelist who writes in English. He is the author of A Bowstring Winter, Sons of Brahma and Luck. Born in Shillong in 1956, he did his BA from St. Edmund's College, Shillong, way back in the year 1976, and thereafter did his Masters in Economics from Guwahati University. At a later point of time, he also did his LLB from Guwahati University. He was the Director of Sports and Youth Welfare, Assam, and was the President of the All Assam Taekwondo Association for long 10 years, a decade. He is also the founder secretary of the Northeast Writers Forum, established in 1997. It's almost 23 years now. His short stories have been published in various newspapers, including the Sentinel and the Telegraph as well. A collection of short stories, Luck, was published in 2010 by Penguin. Hazarika's first novel, A Bowstring Winter, was published by Penguin India in 2006. His second novel, Sons of Brahma, also by Penguin, was published in 2014. He is a recipient of the Katha Award for Fiction in English in 1996 and the DY 365 Award for Literature for 2014. Dhruba Hazarika retired as a commissioner and secretary to the government of Assam. So it's a little combination of being a bureaucrat as well as a writer of repute. So welcome, Dhruba. It's so good to have an eminent and erudite scholar like you, a writer who is known throughout the country in our midst. And I'm sure that your sharing of your ideas about creative writing in English will definitely enrich all the audience which are there in a virtual world today. Thank you so much and welcome, Dhruba, once again. Over to Mitra to introduce our next panelist, Rashmi Narzary. Thank you, Mitra.
Welcome, Dhruba sir. I believe there are certain network issues, but then that's the way nowadays. We can't really help it, and we have to, just like learning to live with Corona, we have to learn to live with network issues probably, and these things are so unpredictable. So my pleasure in introducing Rashmi Narzary, Sahitya Akademi winner. She's an author, a creative writing mentor, and an independent editor. She sometimes dabbles, I like that use of that word sometimes in her profile. She sometimes dabbles in communication skills as a consultant and also some translations to her credit. I do not know why it is sometimes. It's actually every time whenever she's speaking to someone, because her enriched communication skill, one small conversation with Rashmi, and it's an enriching experience. Her works include His Share of Sky, which is a collection of short stories that won her the Sahitya Academy for Children's Literature in 2016. She was also awarded the Prague Prerana Award just before lockdown, if I have not mistaken, in 2020 for literature. As a creative writing mentor, she has been a national finale mentor for Katha Utsav and has also mentored the Indo-Japanese venture Zuban Sasakawa Peace Foundation Writing Methodology grants. Of the translations that she has worked upon, the most that she cherishes are a few of late Dr. Bhabindranath Soikia's works, One of those include the transcreation of the famous Assamese road play of the 70s, Hanta Hista, Rista Pusta, Mohadusta in English prose. I think we grew up with this. So therefore, our generation can very well identify with this. As an independent editor, Narzary has done projects for UNICEF Assam and other firms. But to have her way, she loves to be introduced as a mother of a happily boisterous home of 2 children, 3 pets, and a large flock of doves, pigeons, and house sparrows, which she manages with a wee bit of help from her husband, Hemanta. I think that touch of nature, I believe the elements from nature also influences your writing. Over to you, Rashmi. It's wonderful to have you here today afternoon.
Thank you, Mitra. Thank you. So I don't know, I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy as far as this much is concerned that the flow of the network is fine till here. And I guess before I start, I would just like to know what you would like me to talk about developing creative writing skills in the youth. Maybe Dhruba, how about you starting?
Yeah, I'm sure Dhrubada will be. I believe we have once again Dhrubada. I think he just got dropped out.
So because of network issues, we are having to make a slight deviation in our schedules. So is it all right? So whichever way the moderators take us, we are there to follow their rules and guidance. Just tell us which way to go and we will go that way. Yeah.
So Jovial.
Mitra, has anyone else joined in as our guests or?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Not yet. Okay,
so
but
I think
not yet.
We will also take.
Then I guess since
so I think we'll start with Rashmi.
Right,
yes.
right.
Mitra?
Dhruba is actually facing some technical issues. Rashmi will start.
Okay, then.
Rolling in the
I always love to do some lot of jabbering and chattering, Okay, so here we go. Very good afternoon to all of you. And because we are talking of developing creative writing skills in the youth, we probably would like to know when and hows and whys of developing creative writing skills. Now, when we come to the when, it is right from the earliest stages, as early as possible, because when the child is looking at the leaves and the stars in the sky and animals, so it is since then that parents, the teachers, or whoever is grooming the child, I think should make the child connect with the environment, with the nature around, with people and everything. And then they should let the child absorb everything of it, observe everything of it. This is how the child learns to retain. And when and as gradually the parents and the guardians keep talking to the child about these things and develop his or her connect with his surroundings, the child learns how these things grow around him, how they behave, how they react. And this is how the creativity is developed in the child. And there is no time as such, there is no force as such. I think we have all grown up as kids and we have seen kids growing around us. And I think this is how we raise them, or this is how we have been raised, that we non-stop, we see things, and if we are talked about them in a very nice way, pleasant way, we tend to remember them in a nice way. And this is how we learn to create our own stories. If a small child is taken for a walk in the park by his mother or his grandparents, and if the grandparents say, "Oh, look at that squirrel, such a lovely one," instead of just taking the child straight into the park and walking quietly and buying him an ice cream and coming back home, instead of that, maybe if he sees a squirrel, "Hey, look at that squirrel, isn't it nice?" And then you build up a story around it. I think the squirrel is going up to the tree to meet his friend, and maybe he thinks he will get a nut there. So that kind of just make-believe stories, builds up the child's curiosity. That's the purpose of our building up a story around nature, around everything we see. So that kind of builds up the child's curiosity, and the child tends to learn more. He will automatically start asking, so grandpa, squirrels eat nuts? They live on trees? So this is how creative writing skills develop at the earliest stages. And when the child is looking up at trees and the leaves are shaking, instead of just saying, hey, come in, there's a wind blowing, come back in, and then you put the child inside and you close all the doors and windows and keep him locked in. No, maybe that's wrong. Even if the child is inside, maybe let him look out through the window and tell him, hey, look, the leaves are talking to each other. And then you build up your own story around it. And this has to be fun even for the guardians. Otherwise, if it's a pressure for the guardians, the child won't enjoy it. And then he will not think creative writing or creativity is enjoyable, is pleasurable. He will think it is a task, it is a chore. He will not like it at all. So that is the when. And as the child grows, his curiosity about things around him will grow. His inquisitiveness will grow. And in the process, as he develops these skills, his curiosity, his keenness to learn more will also spill out into his academics. That's where we need to blend the creativity of nature around him and the academics, because we need the all-round development of the child. And one without the other is kind of not properly balanced. So as we go towards the academics also, the child will learn and his attention capacity increases. When he learns his creative skills, develops his creative skills, his attention capacity also improves with it. And in the process, he learns to retain more. And when the need arises, he can deliver more of it. So when we connect with all the things around, he needs to observe, and then he needs to retain them, and then he needs to express them when the time comes. So this I call the core skills of creative development. If it's okay, I think before we go on to the hows and whys of developing creative writing skills in the youth, is it all right, Mitra, if I just share a few slides?
Yes, Rashmi, absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, so I go ahead with it. Dibjyoti, if there is any help I need, I'll need your support here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's right here. Okay. Okay, so that is the core skills, the nucleus of the very foundation, the very development of creative writing, of creative development in youth. So you see, C is for connect, O is for observe, R is for retain, and E is for express. They together make core. So this is the core skills. And then next we go on to connect. C is the connect. Look at the joy in the children when they connect. And then we observe. See, when we observe, we try to put a passion in the child of everything around nature. Let them love things in nature. And then now we see it is retain. So you put in everything there and lock it in. You lock it in. And then later on, you express for electrifying expressions and your power to create and develop. See the kind of electrification that it produces in the youth. So this is okay. So this is what it was. And this is why we need, I put it as the core skills of developing creative skills. Now we come to the hows. How do you develop creative writing skills? This is what I already said. This is for the slightly younger children. Then for the slightly, from 11 years to maybe slightly higher, there I think we can let the child talk and connect more with friends and with other people around. And in the process, there can be an exchange of words. They can have games. The word, give them a word, make them form a sentence, and from that sentence, make them form a phrase, and from that phrase, make them form a story using things that they see around. They don't have to create something very big and bombastic. Let them just deal with, use subjects around them. So I think that will help them. And then if in their academics they learn something like, say, the Bermuda Triangle, and there is not much in the academics about it, create a kind of curiosity in the child so that the child learns about the Bermuda Triangle somewhere else. You talk to him, and nowadays there is no dearth of knowledge. You can just Google everything and it's all there. But you have to create the proper awareness. You have to build where the child's curiosity channelizes. So that is one thing. And once he gets to know more about that topic, that subject, for instance, in this case, we are talking about the Bermuda Triangle. So whenever there is, I'm just giving you an example, whenever there is some tests or in the course of the child's academics, he definitely will know at least something more than the rest of the children about the Bermuda Triangle. So his project at least has something more in it, and he gets an upper edge. So I think creating that curiosity is very, very essential in the child. And another thing is we have to really learn how to make the child express himself or herself. Because I always tell this, a lot of people think this, that expression and language and all, these are only things that people in literature need to know. Sorry, it's not at all like that. People in totally technical fields also need to have really beautiful language and creative language, and their expression has to be proper because the communication has to be proper. Because if you are so much into technology and you know really amazing stuff, but when you have to prepare a project and when you have to present that project in front of a board of directors and you have to put up your amazing idea in front of them and your language is absolutely zero, there is the hitch. So whichever way it is, whatever you are, you need to have proper expressions, proper language, proper communication skills, and these start not halfway through your life. These start right at childhood, and of course, the child also will learn when parents start talking. And this is not an isolated world, we cannot put the onus only on the parents, only on the teachers, or only on whoever is looking after the child. No, it's a continuous process. From the moment the child wakes up to the moment the child goes back to sleep again, I think it's a continuous process of learning, and the onus is on all of us because we all are stakeholders in the all-round development of the child. So that is the hows. And then we come to the whys of developing creative writing skills. First of all, it develops the child emotionally. Sometimes when the child is upset or depressed and she doesn't know how to express it, the child has this tendency of breaking things and flinging out things and harming herself. So instead of that, if in those earlier times when she is happy and she has taken her walks with her grandparents in the park and all those times when she has observed and her creative writing creativity skills have been developed, she can use those skills and she can put them into paper and vent out all her negative energy onto paper with a pen. Or it's the same, she can use her laptop, just tappity, 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 and she vents out all her anger and all her depression into it. But what comes out is some kind of piece of literature, piece of fiction that probably she will love to read later on, and maybe she would love to develop it into some kind of greater work which is no more filled with hatred or depression, which probably she will come to love. So that is one thing. And then, of course, developing creative skills in the youth also develops intellectual skills, because in the first place, we already talked about it. We develop the child's curiosity. So when the child is curiosity, he or she automatically learns to be more intelligent about it, I guess. And then when we talk about creative writing skills, the child is also developing side by side his or her organizational skills. You know how this happens? This happens because the child will put everything in steps. He will put the title first of the story, then he will put out a gist of the character, the subject, and then he will put the plot, then he will put the build up, then he will put the drama, the action, the suspense, and then he will put the build up of everything put together, then he will come to a climax, and then he will wrap it up. So in the process, he has organized the story in beautiful steps, in chapters. Don't you think this has, in the process, created the child's organizational skills? He has organized the story in such a way that everything is in proper chapters. So that gives the child an edge in his organizational capacity. When later on in life he organizes events, or he organizes his own thesis papers and whatevers. So he has already an upper edge. He has already learned his organizational skills. Otherwise, sometimes it happens, someone knows everything. They have all the material, the data to write into something, but they don't know how to start, where to start, which part to put first, and which part to put in the middle, and which part to end with. They don't know it. So they are a complete chaos, despite having facts and figures, everything wonderfully. So this is where creative writing skills also come into the matter. And then we have management skills also. So the child also in the process learns management skills. You know how? Because he is juggling properly between the subject, the storyline, the mood, the tone, and the language flow of the entire story. He is managing everything into a proper blend. So maybe later on when we have workshops and all, so then this entire process comes together. We can show them how management of the child's management capacity comes into play when he or she has learned to develop creative writing skills. And last but not the least, it's the child's confidence that gets hugely boosted, hugely boosted. So I guess, yeah, we have dealt with the whens and the hows and the whys of creative writing skills in the youth. And of course, there are so many other things also to discuss, because this is not just something about, half an hour schedule or 1 hour schedule, or for that matter, a one-day schedule, because it measures the entire lifetime of a child. We're talking of the youth here, no doubt, but it includes the entire lifetime. So this is a continuous process. Yes, Mitra? I think I have made myself clear so far.
Absolutely. Rashmi, it was awesome. You said that creative writing helps in organizing skills, in developing organizing skills.
I think so.
I think you just walked the talk. Yeah, you walked the talk. You walk the talk by organizing your, delivery of your content so beautifully, well structured, from starting from the what,
thank you,
the how, and the why. I was trying to figure out if there was any question. There aren't any. So maybe we'll come back in the next round, not for question and answer as such, but maybe some mutual comments. So I would like to hand over the proceedings to Jovial, maybe a comment from him before he calls upon the next panelist. Jovial.
Well, I was listening to Rashmi with rapt attention because there are quite a lot of things that we too have got to learn from her. Being a writer who has got hands-on experience, she has talked about observation, expression, creativity, retention, communication skills, language skills, and catching children young. If they are curious, that's a sign of more intelligence. And then she also talked about organization skills in detail and also uh, stressed on the importance of coherence. That is organization, but then you've got to maintain a sequence, one after one, how to develop the storyline and plot and everything. So it was her presentation was absolutely lucid and clarity was a hallmark. So we enjoyed listening to her. And thank you so much, Rashmi, for your wonderful
I'm
presentation.
glad.
Yeah,
I'm glad it
and,
helped.
yeah, and we can definitely have an interactive round between the two stalwarts of creative writing, you and Dhruba. If Dhruba is back, can we invite him to do his presentation? Is Dhruba back, by the way?
Yes, he
Yes.
is.
So now I'd like to request Dhruba to uh, make his presentation before our audience. And I believe Dhruba is basically going to talk about the first spark of creativity. Do all stories have to be exciting? The craft and the art of selectivity in fiction, imagination versus reality, in character outlining, in developing plots. He's also going to talk about some points on the necessity of wide readings, why we need to write. Before being a writer, you need to be a reader. I believe these are the broad areas that he's going to touch upon. Welcome, Dhruba, and please, you can start. The ball is in your court.
Well, I'm afraid we lost him again. He just got dropped out.
Right.
Let's give him a moment to come back.
Yeah, he has come back. He has come back.
He's back.
Welcome,
He's back.
Dhruba. You can go ahead, Dhruba.
Hello.
Yes, Dhruba, we can hear you.
Yeah, Jovial, can you hear me or
Yes, loud and clear.
I can't hear anybody.
We can hear you, Dhruba.
We can hear you, Dhruba.
Dhruba, everything is okay? Yeah.
Yeah. Mitra, Jovial, I can hear you. Can you all hear me? Am I supposed to speak?
Loud and clear, Dhruba.
Yeah. I think I'm, making it difficult for you, but the network here is very bad. Mitra, Jovial, Rashmi, how are you? Good to see you, and uh, uh, big hello to the August audience. I can't see them. But anyway, let me come straight to the point. I think Rashmi spoke so well. I'm feeling highly inadequate now. That was really an eye opener what you said, and you have structured it so well. So hats off to you. You spoke well to yesterday in a similar webinar. I will focus today on three aspects. I mean, since I was supposed to speak on for the students who are above class 10 and henceforth seemingly on the adult side, now it's gone. I can't see anybody. Can you hear me? Yes, you can hear you. So I'll continue speaking nevertheless, although I can't see anyone. The first aspect I'll touch on today is about would-be writers who want to write a short story, for example. They ask me, how do we go about it? How do we start? Now, this is the point where you have to be very sure about yourself. Do you actually want to be a writer? Or is it because you think it's a fashionable thing to be a writer? Now, if you want to be a writer, you have to keep your senses alert. That is the first spark of your creativity. The five senses, your hearing, your sight, your smell, will ensure that you are alert to that kind of creativity. Now, when I had my lunch, I was thinking that can a story be built on humidity? What is humidity? How does it affect a man? I had a migraine last night. It's still continuing actually. It's a personal thing I'm sharing with you, but to assist you in telling you that can a person make a migraine, something that I feel, a kind of pain, and humidity put together, mold it in such a way that I develop a plot and a character, and hence or thereby a story. Is it possible? I told myself, yes, it's possible. How? Well, that will require application of mind. But what I want to first tell you is this, that you first got to have booking for the spark to develop inside you for a certain kind of creativity. In the absence of any of these senses being fine-tuned, you cannot really truly have sensitivity. For example, let's go to this magnificent of all emotions called love. I love my mother. I love my country. I love writing short stories, or I writing a novel. What is this emotion or feeling called love? How truly do I love it? You have to define to yourself whether it is worthy of a spark, worthy of magnifying it into a story. I'll make it short because there'll be more rounds of interaction. We can talk later. But the second point that I want to tell you about this, that you have to use your subconscious in this matter about creativity. Now, according to a lot of linguists, they say it's been 1 million years old since language was invented. And basically, it was the subconscious that was working before that, when there were only gestures. And to a good extent, we still continue with that language called the subconscious language. Now, this might appear a bit high funder to some of you. It's not. It's simply this, that like anything that has evolved over the years, over the centuries, language also has evolved. But subconscious still plays a major part in your linguistic understanding. There is always this thing called reading between the lines. When you go back to your classroom or ask Mitra ma'am or Rashmi ma'am later, or even Jovial sir, you ask them what this reading between the lines mean. This subconscious language, this language which we call the subconscious, comes when you least bother thinking about it. It is actually contrary to the five senses. The five senses are working all right, but in between them, you remember something, yet you tend to forget. You taste something, you forget about the taste. There is a contradiction in terms, yet it is retained in your subconscious, as a result of which Freud and the others said that we begin to dream. Dreams are nothing, they say, but a result of your subconscious. Creativity is also, to a very, very, very good extent, I would say, on a personal count, is a result of your subconscious. So now your next question would be, if that be so, how do you develop your subconscious? You develop your subconscious by experiencing as much as possible. And then you say, like, when I say about experiences, how do I experience death? Do I have to undergo death to write well about death? No, there is this great writer, and whom I love quoting very much, whose name is Somerset Maugham, who passed away long, long years ago. He says, no, experience is not that you have to uh, go through the whole thing. It's like tasting mutton. You don't have to eat the whole goat to taste mutton. So when you talk about death, you can see, you can go through the pains of someone who is very close to you, who's dead, and for which you feel a lot of grief, and you build up your kind of experience or emotions in a vicarious way through that situation. Now, having spoken about senses, having spoken about the subconscious, I would like to now go over to this issue called how exciting must a story be? Is excitement a necessary part of any story? What is the meaning of a story which is not exciting? I mean, is there such a thing as a story or a novel or a short story which can be without any excitement? That is a very valid question, because the attempt I have seen of almost every writer, young writer or even elderly writers, there is an understanding that it has to be a bestseller. That that what is not exciting will not appeal to the reader. This is where I want to tell you that the first reader of your work is yourself. That when you write, remember, there is your alter ego, there is a doppelganger, there is a person hovering behind you, watching you as you write. He is none but yourself. You are writing, you are telling him that this is what I'm writing, and right now I'm excited. Right now I'm not excited. A story on the whole has to be interesting. There is a difference between a story that is interesting versus a story that is exciting. Any story that is interesting is a story that is good enough to fetch you the Nobel Prize. Excitement is of a different genre, about which probably Rashmi, in due course, in yesterday's presentation, I think she had, I think she had a word on that, but not an elaborate one. But please understand that a story has to be basically, essentially interesting. Ultimately, first and foremost, you're writing for yourself, and hence you personally will know from your level of sensitivity, your level of understanding, how truly a story must be interesting. Please remember, we'll talk later during the question and answer session, if you want to, the difference between exciting story and an interesting story. But to sum it up, by virtue of the very fact that boredom is something that nobody wants in life, a story essentially must not be boring. Okay, so that's that. The number 3 point is this, that I'm supposed to discuss with you today, is that imagination and reality. How far does imagination contribute to a story, and how far does reality contribute to a story? Is it a fine combination of the two? Are the two distinctly separate? What is imagination in this world of ours? What is reality in this world of ours, especially now that we have virtual reality? The fact that I'm speaking to you right now, it's in not an imaginative world, it's not even in a real world, but it's in a virtual world. So we have three kinds of worlds going right now. And in a story, what is basically required for making a story come out well? Now, the faculty of imagination, as any writer will tell you, is of immense importance. And what is imagination? Your imagination is essentially, very plainly, I would say, is your capacity to dream. It is from your first fanciful dream that the Wright brothers probably brought out the aeroplane. So many things happen from the first iota of dreams, and from that you develop your imagination. Hemingway once said, it was Hemingway's birthday on the 21st, and yesterday I was listening to Rashmi, and she was mentioning that something about lying, that fiction writers are liars because we have to lie. We have to lie and tell you that it is the truth, and you have to, after reading the story, you cry or you laugh and you make it feel good. And then some of them are half lies. That is what I remember Rashmi saying yesterday in her brilliant presentation. So the gift of lying is basically at the basis of fiction. But this is not lying which is different from cheating. This is lying of a kind that will allow your imagination to grow. Please remember that when you're a child, you probably stole some extra sweets from the fridge, or you had a pitha or two extra which your mother didn't want you to take, and later on you lied to her. Now, I would not say that is cheating. That is an exercise in self-defense. in your very nicely said. In a seminar where he said that reading is not necessary at all. All you have to do is gather some facts, put them together, and then you have a story. I objected in that meeting. My friend, there was another friend of mine from Assam. I said, no, this can't be, because if you don't read, you can never know the finer points about how to go about framing a sentence. Framing, I talked about excitement a while back. Each paragraph, for example, has its own excitement. Is this the right word? You ask yourself. That itself is a source of excitement. Is this where I put a semicolon, or is this where I put a comma? Is this the right place to end the paragraph? That itself is an excitement. And how do you come to know all this? You come to know all this from sheer wide and varied reading. It is not just reading, the Nobel Prize winners. It is not just reading children's literature. It is not just reading my books or Rashmi's books or Jovial's textbooks or Mitra's. You read as per your personal inclinations, but it must necessarily be wide, because only through a wide reading will you be able to come to compare what is good from what is bad. And when I say good from bad, there is no moral connotation. It is simply what is your sensitivity. From that, you filter through and come down to what makes you the kind of writer you are. For finally, please remember one thing, that no two writers are the same. Nobody in this whole world, despite we write in English, we have 26 letters in the alphabet. Having 26 letters doesn't mean that all of us, having learned the same, will turn out to be the same kind of writers. No. You go in terms of your own different persona, and your own different persona is generated by your experiences, by your memory intake, by what you have read, and by your sensitivity towards your own soul. I think, Mitra, I've spoken a bit too much, uh, and I hope you can hear me, Jovial. I'd like to now say thank you and hand over to you for further discussions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dhruba, but then I'd expect you to carry on if possible, because we
Oh,
find
yes,
your talk
I
very
can carry
interesting.
on.
You've got a lot of things, and it's so interesting that we don't want to let you go right away. If you
Jovial,
feel like you can
no,
carry
but
on,
yeah, I thought, I speak only about 15 minutes, because generally what happens, I generally have a sense of boredom with my own words. And there is one classic sentence from P.G. Woodhouse. He once said through one of his characters, that he was a man who spoke so much that he was carried away by the exuberance of his own verbosity. He began to love his own words, Jovial. So, which is a very bad situation. Anyway, Jovial, I'll, I'll come to the other part which I wanted to address the students. It's about selectivity. Selectivity, Mitra, Jovial, Rashmi. I hope you'll kindly bear with me. Uh, uh, you know,
Come
and
on.
this business about writing can be a craft, or it can be an art, or it can be a combination of both. It can be craftsmanship, it can be a work of art. Now, when it happens, I was reading a book long years back by Herman Hesse, and there he talked about selectivity. Now you have this canvas, you have these millions of words or thousands of words, you have this imagination of yours, you have situations, so many of them, you have so many hundreds of characters, you have so many sentences. So you have to now select. That selection part is something we don't attend to. When you go for your selection, you will have to tell yourself that out of these thousands of images that you have, how would you go about selecting? Now, this is one particular aspect of writing that I found very difficult. I'll go slightly personal. I hope you don't think it's self-advertisement, but I'm presently writing a novel based on a magistrate who's not a very good magistrate. He's a killer magistrate. He loves to kill people. It's a suspense work, and I was trying to find out how to go about Rashmi about this magistrate who loves to kill people. I'm saying it in an open forum because it's a fictional work. I actually haven't met a guy like him. So thereafter, so Jovial, what happened in my 32 years of experience in various capacities. Rashmi's husband, my senior in my service, Mitra Narzary sir, he's also gone through a lot of experiences as a magistrate and as in our secretarial work in Dispur. Now, when I went back through my diaries for the first 10 years of my life as a young bureaucrat, I found out a huge amount of experiences with various amount of characters. Now, if I were to fill those 10 years of my diary, it would probably come to about 6 or 7 books, which I don't want because nobody would read them. I wanted one book. So how do I select? Now, that is a structural selection in terms of my experiences, in terms of my observations, and in terms of ensuring that the characters I portray, or the plot, or the single plot, or the subplots that will make up the story will mean something coherent and logical to the reader. How do I select? Now, that is something you will have to attend to. It will require your personal perception, your kind of intelligence that you possess. Uh, and I use the word narrow it down. Because if you look at a haiku, yesterday I think who was referring to, Pranami Bhattacharya was referring to haiku. Just 3 or 4 lines and you have a beautiful imaginative poem. So you select only 3 lines. Then you have the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. You have probably about, I think, 120 lines. Then you have the Mahabharata, which is a whole huge volume, an epic. You have the Odyssey and the Iliad, which is another huge. So where do you select? How do you select? Please understand, I will not be able to tell you because this is very personal. But what one should keep in mind is the selectivity criterion. The selectivity criterion is very important in molding your story, in molding your character, in molding even your sentences, complex sentences, simple sentences, or compound sentences, whatever. So, if necessary, we can come to this again later about the matter of selectivity. Jovial, have I spoken again more than I should have?
Yeah, you did, but then you can go on. Anyway.
No, Jovial, I think
Jovial.
No,
Yeah.
Jovial.
he's not at all
Jovial.
spoken more.
Yeah,
Because,
right,
you
Mitra.
know, when he speaks
Absolutely.
more, we always like it. We don't know he has spoken more.
Yeah. Okay.
You have not spoken more, rather, you have spoken less.
You have spoken less,
Mitra,
indeed. Beautiful way to put it.
I think I should let Rashmi and the others speak because I mean it's not fair. I was speaking for more than 20 minutes.
No, it's perfectly
We
all
can
right.
talk later.
Mitra, if I may just sum up my observation about Dhruba's presentation, he has talked about the initial spark, which is of utmost importance. The initial spark, is it really worth amplifying the spark, that idea? And then he talks about beginning with the unconscious, and then also in a very subtle way links creativity with the unconscious. And how do we develop that unconscious? Developing that unconscious by experience, and then
Jovial,
excitement.
it's actually not the unconscious, Jovial, it's the subconscious.
I'm
There's
so
a
sorry, I
difference.
got it wrong. Subconscious, yeah. Subconscious, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. And then he talks about exciting, being exciting. Is exciting a necessary part of storytelling? On the whole, it ought to be essentially interesting. He also talked about a story should be interesting on the whole, and imagination versus reality. And now we are also living with another kind of a reality, which is known as virtual reality. So there are three different words. Then he talked about lying, which is of course different from cheating. He has also given examples of what cheating is all about, and then lying, which allows lying essentially allows imagination to take wings. And then he talked about selectivity, and I found primarily two things very interesting because I can link those two things with linguistics. He talked about punctuation. He
Sure.
talked about where to stop, how to use an mark or exclamation mark or a note of interrogation or a full stop or a comma or a semicolon. How do you do that? It reminded me of a poem by E. Cummings, Seeker of Truth, where the poet has left the complete poem without any punctuation mark, without using any punctuation marks. And the poem is just comprises four lines: Seeker of truth, seek no path, all paths lead where truth is here. And and then
Right.
you can actually use punctuation marks and interpret in three different ways by using dash, question mark, and on all that. So these are things actually that we have dealt in what we call foregrounding and lexical deviation. Sorry, deviation and foregrounding. There are different kinds of deviations. So you have grammatical deviation, lexical deviation, graphological deviation, phonological deviation, deviation of register. So according to the deviation of punctuation, grammar, you can leave a poem unpunctuated, and then you can leave it to the reader open-ended, and the reader might actually interpret in three different ways. And the other thing that I found very interesting in the course of Dhrubada's presentation was selectivity. Now, what to select? We are actually caught in a plethora of ideas and so many different things, but then we have to select in a very discrete way. So that reminded me of the paradigmatic and syntagmatic choices that we make when we frame sentences in
In
linguistics.
them.
Yeah. So you have a paradigm of words, and from that you'll have to choose which word would sound or seem to be the most appropriate in a given context. And then likewise, horizontally you also.
Yeah, Jovial, I'll just interrupt. Sorry, I mean I'm
Yeah.
getting carried away with your presentation. There is this word called euphony. Euphony, which
Euphony.
euphony. Euphony.
Euphony is,
I think you
yeah,
can tell the story. Yeah, about it.
exactly. Euphony is good sound. So
Yeah.
euphony, cacophony, and phony. Phone is sound. Phone primarily means sound, and from phone you have euphony, which is good sound, something which is music to the ears, and then you talk about cacophony at the other extreme, which is noise, basically. Okay, we can carry on in the interactive session again. Now I'd like
Yeah.
to request Mitra to say a few words, her observations, and then we can interact with Rashmi as well. Mitra.
Yeah. Thank you, Jovial. Well, as far as observations was concerned, and you just used a word called euphony. I just got carried away by the euphony of the content that and the
Yeah,
words
right,
used by
right. Very well said.
Dhruba, and it reminded me of that very common quote by Buddha, which says that what you think, you become; what you feel, you attract, and what you can imagine, you create. So therefore,
Okay.
Dhruba spoke of creating a storyline and imagining. He spoke of dreams and he spoke of fiction and differentiated between the lie and the cheating, etc. So everything. I mean, I think everything, if it boils down to one word, is very not one word, a few sentences. I think is very beautifully caught in that last line of this quote by Buddha. And I was, it came back to my mind as I was hearing you, that what you imagine, you can create. So to create, like, going back, like, it's once again, it reminds me of one more thing. Like in school, whenever we are talking of pedagogy, we are talking of teaching them in the modern ways, we refer to the Bloom's taxonomy, that knowledge and understanding is at the bottom, and then gradually we have to take them up to the higher order thinking skills, which is application and analyzing and evaluation, and the final way is create. And I think, Dhruboda, what you said so beautifully fit in that Bloom's taxonomy pyramid, in the higher orders, that first we apply. We apply the vocabulary, the grammar, the thought, the imagination. You spoke about selection. So therefore, like, we analyze the different things available, the different situations probably available. We analyze and we select what is required. We filter out what's not necessary and take in what's required. And then finally, we create an
True.
indigenous product, something which is so organic. And therefore, probably what I was reminded is that if a child was able to write out a story without judging the literary skills, we are actually taking the child or hand holding the child through these steps of Bloom's taxonomy application, creation, and without achieve that highest level of the pyramid in the right way, which we should be doing in our classrooms. So that was awesome to hear you, and the seamlessly that you took us through Ernest Hemingway and Somerset Maugham and everything. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure hearing you.
Thank you.
Jovial, over to you.
Yeah, it was indeed a pleasure listening to both Dhruba and Rashmi. But I'd like to ask a question to Rashmi. She has talked about curiosity being a sign of more intelligence. Would you kindly elaborate on the difference between a curious child and a child I've seen sometimes, not quite often, who would sit quietly in the corner, say nothing, do nothing, even if asked whether you're hungry, just nod the head and not too much of words. And the child who is very curious will always be on a hunt to, look around and be very curious. Would you kindly elaborate on that concept of curiosity that you find normally in kids? Normally in kids, because most kids are curious, by the way. Rashmi.
Yeah, thanks, Jovial. In this case, the child might be curious, not very vocally. His curiosity can be in an observational manner. He is
Right.
observing around. He's not talking too much. He is observing his surroundings. He's looking around. He is using, like Dhruba said, he is using all his senses. Maybe because he is quiet doesn't mean he is not feeling. He will feel the air blowing through. Is it a cold air or is it a hot air coming and touching his skin? Or he will use his eyes. What does he see? He sees the sky. What is there? Is it a bird that has flown by or is it a kite? So, someone who has just raced through the ground below that sky might have not observed that thing that had flown above his head. But this quiet child, he has observed and he has built his curiosity to look back again to know whether it's a kite or a bird. So he is curious, and in the process, he has learned. This is just a metaphor, he has just learned that what had flown above him was a bird or a kite. So the same curiosity also comes back to his other fields. When he uses his curiosity in these kind of things, he might not ask you anything. He will be very quiet, but he will let his other senses take over. He will let his nose take over. He will sniff something smelling. What is it? Is it the Dettol that Mama used to sanitize the windows today? So that's it. He will be curious in that way. So I think he will be applying that same curiosity to his other fields, to his academics, to his sports, to his music, and more importantly, to his creative writing skills, maybe.
My curiosity is satisfied.
Okay, but you don't look like a very quiet child in the
Thank
corner.
you. Right.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, I'd like to ask questions to Dhruba as well, but then first I'd like to uh, ask Mitra
Very.
to say,
Yeah.
ask questions. Yeah.
Rashmi, you know what? I connected so well when you said, when we are talking of, when you're speaking of the why, what, the why, and the how, or rather the what, the how, and the why. And you mentioned that, it could start just with a simple question. And I think that's so true. And I would like you to maybe elaborate a little more. No? Okay. Am I not audible? Hello?
Elaborate,
Yeah, you're audible.
Hello?
elaborate a little more on. Elaborate
Okay.
a little more
Yeah, just
on
coming
what,
back.
Mitra? Yes.
Yes, I'm coming back. Yeah. So what to start with that point where you said that it all starts with a question, and that question has to be asked right at the young age, when the children are toddlers, in the family environment, or in the school environment. Like one example that I was reminded of, like in our school, I've seen my teachers of the pre-primary. Many a times I see them singing and dancing and to a song called "Kaku Baba Sits on a Big Old Tree," and then all of a sudden the singing stops, and the teacher is asking, "Where does Kaku Baba sit?" So then everybody has to say, "Kaku Baba sits on the big old tree." On the next question is on the nature of the tree. So I believe this questioning is something that every teacher, whether the teacher could be, did we lose Rashmi? Yeah, we'll just wait for her to come back. And till then, maybe I'll just, there Rashmi comes back. We'll just wait for a while. Hello, Rashmi?
Okay. Can you all
Yeah.
hear me? Can you all
Yes,
hear
yes,
me?
yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
We
Okay.
do,
But
Rashmi.
I'm so sorry, Mitra. I didn't get your question. I didn't get your question. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, yeah. No problem. You got dropped because of
Yeah, could you
network
please?
issues. Never mind. Yeah.
Yeah,
So just
let's all
coming back
blame
to
it to
that
that.
point, the questions, the necessity to trigger the right kind of questions, to ask the right kind of questions, because as you all have put in, that curiosity, you spoke of curiosity, Dhruba spoke of curiosity, and I think curiosity is triggered by a question, and that question can be anywhere. It could be at home, it could be in the school at the lowest level, maybe even in nursery, lower KG,
Mhm.
and I believe, that's all the more important because we say that a teacher is like the compass who shows us the true north. So maybe whether it is the mother who is a teacher at home or the teacher who is a teacher in school, this question thing is very important. And if you could really elaborate on how we can, take this questioning aspect, how much we can exploit this term called questioning to trigger curiosity at various levels amongst the peer, amongst teachers and students, at home, to achieve what we wish to achieve, the necessities of developing creative writing skills. I don't know if I was clear enough in my what I wanted to ask. Basically, Rashmi, did you hear me? Hello, Rashmi. Hello, Rashmi.
If I'm not mistaken, Mitra, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me, Mitra?
Yes, I can. I can.
You can hear me, Mitra? Okay. If I'm not
Yes, I
mistaken,
can.
if I can what I gather from this rumble stripped and fragmented audio, I gather you're just wanting to know what kind of questions and curiosity, inquisitiveness are we to deal with, and what kind of questions are to be encouraged. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. What kind of
Is
questions are
that
to be
right?
encouraged? Yes, Rashmi. What kind of
The
questions
kind
are
of
to be
questions,
encouraged?
okay, okay.
And the kind of questions
This
that should be
all
put
depends
forward.
on the yes, and the time and the kind of questions. This all depends on how the parents and the teachers handle the child's emotional levels, emotional development, and the questions that the child puts through. Because we cannot straight away say, no, these are not questions you are to ask. That will totally put the child in an absolute no-no zone. And the child will think that, okay, I'm not supposed to venture out. I'm not supposed to explore and ask. However, maybe we can deal with it in this way that, okay, child, yes, I will give you an answer to this, but when the right time comes, or maybe just wait for a moment, let us walk back home. And as we are walking, let me answer this question to you, because the child might be asking this question right in front of someone. He might be saying something about some person who is standing right in front of them, and he might be asking something about that person which may not be very pleasant to the person the child is asking about. So then I think it is on the mother or whoever is with the child then to just tell him, maybe we can talk about this later. You don't just tell the child, no, no, what are you saying? This is bad manners. You don't say that so bluntly. Maybe you can just say, yes, we can talk about it, and then just divert the child's mind to elsewhere. And being a child, he will get easily diverted. However, it is not on the guardians to leave it at that. The guardian or the parents, whoever, will have to come and tackle with the child and put it in a very mild manner. How these questions are to be dealt with, how these answers to be taken up, how the child has to be told about these things. Because, at a point in life, the child will come to the adolescent stage. He or she will have so many questions about the child's own body, about others' bodies, and about so many things around him. And in fact, these days, we have to talk about these things in schools and colleges as well, considering so many things and issues that are coming up. So I think these questions are to be dealt very sensitively. And as and when the situation comes, we should look, this is not a uniform thing that this particular question should be handled in this particular manner. No, I think this is not the way. As and when the situation comes, it will be for the person who is with the child to judge the situation, to judge the temperament of the child, and to judge the intensity of the subject that he is asking about. It is accordingly that the person will have to answer and relate to the child's question. And also, in that process, the person, the mother or the guardian, whoever is with the child, will also have to consider the child's understanding capacity. Because if he talks in too much of a higher level thing and talks a too high level of things, emotional level or whatever, and the child is maybe not ready to accept that much of huge knowledge regarding whatever he asked about, then everything will fly overhead. So these are things that you have to judge there and then. But never stop a child from asking questions. There are people I have seen, you just kind of don't, never ask these kind of things. No, I think that's not the way. So I guess.
Correct. Very correct.
So I think that's how we handle questions. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the basic takeaway
But I don't
is
know, because this is all different to different kids. But their curiosity level, and in the process, how we encourage them to ask certain questions about certain subjects. And those questions that are very delicate and fragile, this is how we handle. This is how we just talked about. And maybe there are those kind of questions which we would like to encourage. You elaborate on them. Then maybe you put your own questions to the child. You put it like this: okay, I have answered your question about the subject. Now you tell me, what do you think about this subject? So in the process, instead of just one question coming one way, you make it a two-way question. So then the child has elaborated on it, and then he gets to learn more about it. Then he will put more questions because he has learned once more. So the child automatically learns that these are the type of questions that need to be developed.
correct.
So I guess.
Absolutely, Rashmi. Whatever you said has a takeaway for parents, for teachers, and I believe the key point to be mentioned that you mentioned is wherever we are, whether it is at home or whether it is in school, in the classrooms, whether it's school or college or university, that ambience should be there where we encourage questioning and we do not really tell them oh, what a stupid question. That discourages
Never say
the
that. Yes.
person, and
Yes.
maybe
Yes.
never again will think of asking a question. Correct. So truly said. And therefore, questioning is such a important parenting tool, an important pedagogy tool at all levels of education. And that is what I take from the content you spoke, whether it was your beginning session or the question you answered now. So beautifully put, Rashmi. Jovial, over to you.
Yeah, I have a question for Dhrubada again. So, Dhrubada, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. I was listening to Rashmi very well. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, yeah. Dhrubada,
Yeah, tell me.
yeah.
Yes.
You. It's basically some kind of a personal question, but yes, we can also learn something from your answer. Being a bureaucrat for so long, for decades, and also being associated with sports as a director of sports and youth welfare, and also president of the All Assam Taekwondo Association for a long 10 years, and then a lot of experiences by traveling or whatever, meeting people like none less than a person like Ruskin Bond. So you have had a spectrum of experiences and ranging from being a bureaucrat to many different things, meeting so many different people from different walks of life. Now you have so many experiences of different kinds. How do you select? Coming back to selectivity, how have you been able to narrow down, zero down on the Bowstring Winter, your first novel, which was a very interesting read? How have you actually got down to the idea that, well, I'll have to write something about this? Well, I'm sure that Bowstring Winter is basically the plot is, in Shillong or Meghalaya. So how have you managed to actually zero it down to the Bowstring Winter? Your first novel.
Okay, Jovial, you have used my ammunition to put the gun on my forehead, on my temple. Okay, fine.
And it's time for you to fire.
Anyway,
And there goes Dhruba firing.
Yeah.
There are no loaded guns here, Mitra. But then, Jovial, I think selectivity. Yes, selectivity comes first and foremost from your sense of endearment. What actually endears you? What are the things that makes you feel comfortable? Makes you feel close to your heart? I have been a bureaucrat. I've been a sportsman or a sports administrator. Okay, this is all ego stuff about I, and I. Okay, but the other thing is about all this. What has been out? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Can you
yes,
hear me,
loud and
Jovial?
clear. Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah, I can continue.
yes.
Why did I go in for bowstring winter after having gone through this? You see, experiences is what is required. And what Mitra and Rashmi said a while back, that born out of curiosity comes your experience. Now, uh, what is the range of your curiosity? What is the range of your experience? You take the whole gamut of life as your canvas for writing. Just at least I do. I mean, Rashmi and I. At least I'm speaking on behalf of Rashmi. Rashmi, I hope you don't take it otherwise. We are good friends. Been friends for a long time. We share notes. So you see, we go in for what we call realism. There are different genres: science fiction, children's fiction, realism. Horror stories, fairy tales. You name it, we have it. So then, out of all these things, I have selected Shillong because it's my birthplace. I had been there for the first 32 years of my life. I spent some incredibly happy moments there, and I came across some wonderful characters who caught my fancy. Characters, idiosyncratic characters having their own peculiarities. Characters you might thought walked or breathed or they walked bigger than life, characters whom I thought no story could actually bring them out, no movie could bring them out. They fascinated me, and I think most writers, I don't know about all else, at least where I am concerned, I have a sense of fascination by Jovial spectacles, by the blue shirt you're wearing. I'm fascinated. So fascinated that I want to build up a story on Jovial spectacles. So in that same sense, perhaps in the same sense, in Shillong, I came across innumerable characters. When I say innumerable, maybe about 90 to 100 over a period of 32 years. And within that core of 100 characters, there were these 6 or 7 who were involved with the game of archery, tir. And there, through my imagination, combined with whatever sense of reality I had, I built up a story. And this story, again, Jovial, came. It was not a deliberate calculation. It came through instinct. I forgot to
Right.
mention in while passing that your
Yeah.
instinct plays a major role, and hence in
Right.
this entire bucket of experiences, my focus, the one that adhered to my heart first and foremost, was that, and hence I built up a story
Instinctively.
from. For that. Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you, Dhrubada.
thank you, thank you.
At
Drupada,
least many. Yeah.
yeah, sorry, I came in, I barged in rather. Just like, I was too excited probably from what I heard from you. So yesterday, actually, I was attending a program on emotional intelligence, which was being delivered by Veena Raizada ma'am, a very eminent academician from New Delhi. So there, right now, when you were speaking about being fascinated by Jovial's glasses and his blue shirt, or whatever the fascinations that you came across, the characters you came across in Shillong, I connect to what I heard yesterday, where Veena ma'am had spoken about emotional intelligence and had focused on 3 things: think, feel, and emotions. Okay, so I feel
True.
what you said was exactly it gets connected to this emotional intelligence and the facets of emotional intelligence. That first thing first, if you have to put is uh, your emotional expression towards an object or towards a person. Is that the first trigger? Do you also see that connection between these aspects of emotional intelligence and towards creating a story, which is the end product? This start with this emotional quotient that goes on continuously in a human brain.
Yes, I think Mitra,
We react to a certain situation.
that's a lovely
Yeah.
question. Yeah, that's a lovely question, Mitra, in the sense that, see, when you are writing a novel, especially, the characters you have to. They, I think every writer says this, and I'm saying it too, that you have to be the character yourself. At some point of, at some time in your writing, you have to be. Your pen has to move so strongly that you are actually the character, and hence you most I mean most writers, they walk that thin line between madness and I would say non-madness. I mean, there's no word called non-madness, probably I'm creating it now. You have to walk that thin line. Now suppose tomorrow I want to have a character like Mitra, a principal who is very disciplined. I have to know I mean, to the extent with my emotions exactly how you are operating as a principal, because your role also is multifaceted. You are a mother, you are a wife, you are a citizen, you are a principal. You are so many things rolled into one, and I'll have to now walk into your shoes and think as a principal while I'm trying to portray you as a character. So first, the foremost thing is the emotional part, is the connect between the author and his imaginary character. That is the emotional connect. That is the emotional connect. The second part of the emotion is how you make the characters come alive, hopefully, with the 12 generally understood emotions that rule most of mankind. There are 12 general emotions. From psychology, you'll come, I think Joel will probably know better
Yeah.
than me. So these emotions are within the character, and your emotion is how you are emotively connected to the character. So I agree with you, Mitra. I agree with you on that score. Yeah.
Absolutely. That makes me inquisitive to ask you one more question, Dhruba. You just said about
Please.
writing the story, you have to imagine, etc. Since you are, of course, I would like to hear from Rashmi also after Dhruba speaks. You all write stories, you all write novels, you all write fictions. So how is it, like, as a person who has never done that, how is it, like, you are dealing with an imaginary character? Maybe there is some clue somewhere in your life. The clue lies maybe in the person you met, an incident which occurred, an experience that maybe you had. But then when you sit to write, how is it, like, do you get cut yourself off for a few days, or is it that, okay, I finished my maybe Rashmi things, I finished while cooking, and then I'll sit to write, and then I sit and comes out all the beautiful words and the beautiful lines, like, I would, as a non-literary person, I would like to know, how does this writer really go about, how does this happen, this beautiful lines and words and the story weaves up? So do you have to cut yourself out from the rest of the world, sit in isolation, be with just that idea, that thought, or does it just happen, very
Yeah.
naturally in the process of doing your work, day-to-day work?
Mitra, you see, I'd like to answer you in a staggered way. See, uh, number one, I love obsessions when it comes to writing. Once a situation or a character obsesses me, I'm the happiest person ever. It's a sort of a weird psycho kind of a love affair. So, it, it has to eat into you. It has to consume you. So much so that the only way out is to expel it into your writing.
Right.
That is number one. When the obsession happens, Mitra, you don't really look for time. It comes in. It can come in patches. The difficult thing is to get the first draft down. When you have the first draft down, you can have umpteen redrafts. 21 times you rewrite, 30 times or 100 times. But the first draft is the toughest for me, at least, because the obsession that I have had has to be on paper. That obsession now I write down, it did not be, there are various ways. When the first draft is done, which is done in a very scattered way, you are cooking, you come down, you write again, you go to office, you have half an hour back home, you write, you are in your car, it's a 6-hour journey, you scribble down some lines on your paper. All this happens in the first draft. It is only from the second or the third drafts when you have this more organized time schedule, when you have your timetable that for 2 hours write, for the today or 4 hours I'm going to write. So Mitra, it's basically each writer having his own timepiece. And whereas I am concerned, my biggest fight born out of love, if obsession can be a love, but it can be very dangerous because the OCD is there, obsessive compulsive disorder. So the issue is basically the obsession. If one is lucky enough to be obsessed with a theme, that spark I was talking about in the beginning today, it helps you generate the story. And from that comes your timetable. And it again depends, for each book, each story has its own life, its own universe, and hence it follows its own timetable. At least that is how it has been with me. Thank you.
Correct. Thank you. Rashmi, from you, we just lost Rashmi. Did Rashmi just get dropped off? Yeah, like, that question was actually out of curiosity. So, I mean,
Right.
little bit of writing you have to do. Sometimes writing maybe for the inaugurate the principal speech of the school magazine, or maybe a small write-up that maybe Assam Tribune or Times of India asks for. So at that time, I realized that I have to close my door, and I have to say, like, leave me undisturbed. Otherwise, the thoughts do not flow. So I was wondering whether the same thing happens to you. So we are having Rashmi back. So Rashmi, you already are aware of the topic we were discussing. Mother, wife, writer, translator, you are into so many things. And then when you sit to write your books, how is it? share your experience. Do you cut yourself out and then close the ideas, or this just happens at any point of time? Share your experience, Rashmi. Rashmi? Hello, Rashmi. Am I audible? No. Okay. Rashmi again got dropped off. Okay. Jovial, I think I've done a lot of blabbering. Over to you.
No, not at all. No. You have been moderating it pretty well, and it's a pleasure and enlightening, very interesting to listen to Dhruva. Well, only the other day I came across a person who is into writing, a budding writer, and then I told him that it's almost like spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. You might have those powerful feelings and a spontaneous overflow of them, but then you might not have a piece of paper and a pen to actually write down your emotions then and there. So what you do is, sometimes it happens that it might also be a recollection of emotions in tranquility, as Wordsworth rightly said, that when you are in a very tranquil ambience, then you tend to recollect whatever had happened at the particular point of time in the past, and then you go on recollecting everything and then putting on paper. Sometimes it might also happen that way. Well, obsession, as Dhruva said, is the primary requisite. You will need that obsession, obsessed about the idea and that spark and everything. And at times you might not be in a position to immediately put down your thoughts on paper. So later on you recollect, as Dhruva, I think he has recollected whatever had happened at the point of time in the past in Shillong, and then he started to write about the Bowstring winter. I assume.
Yes,
Isn't it
memory
so?
counts a lot. Yeah, Jovial,
Yes.
I mentioned in passing in the first phase that
Right.
out of experience, memory, and reading, I think
You did.
without
You did.
without a very strong functional memory of the things that you love,
Right.
it becomes difficult for a writer to recollect and jot down. So memory plays a huge role in a writer's life, I think.
Real.
I
Right.
don't know, Rashmi.
Very strong.
Correct.
Rashmi also talked about retention.
That is REM of another kind. You have these REM, the rapid eye movement when you're sleeping. So this
Right.
also kind of tallies with what Dhruba said, reading and experience and memory. So they gel together. So that is REM both ways. Yeah.
It's almost like a
So,
confluence of the three.
Yeah.
And Rashmi
Yeah.
also talked about retention, of course, I remember. And she
Yeah.
elaborated on retention. And she has a passion for picking words and coining new words. I loved it. I love the presentation, the way she has actually given us, acronyms for words, which are normally not considered to be acronyms, but then she has given us, words for each letter that stands for a word. It was
No,
very
I summed
interesting,
it up.
Rashmi.
That's why, Mitra
Yeah,
was asking, like Dhruba talking about Bowstring winter, something
yeah,
that had happened way back in Shillong. So he observed
right,
it. He connected with Shillong days. He connected with the archery stuff there and on. So he
right,
connected, he observed, and then he retained. And he left it there. Later
right,
on, after all these years, he expressed it. So
right.
that is the core skill that Dhruba has actually applied so beautifully. Yeah.
As much as to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, could be. Yeah.
But then, Rashmi, I would like to hear from you. Like, how
Yes.
does the books happen? How does it just come out? Do you need that tranquility that Jovial was speaking of, or does the words just flow even amidst the cacophony and all the responsibilities? Do you need yourself to be cut off? We used to hear Rabindranath Tagore go to a hill station to write a book, and he wrote this particular book at this particular place. Do you need such cutoff time, or does it can happen? Whether it is
I just can't think of a cutoff time. My home is a happy cacophony of all kinds of situations. So I get my ideas from there. My books happen from there. So these are my subjects. These are my ideas. So I pick up from there. And I don't cut off. I don't have a particular schedule for writing, Mitra.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I just happen to frame the plots and have what this person is going to say or what this person is going to feel. I just frame them around as I am moving around the house. as I am doing my chores, as I am taking the dogs for a walk, or they just happen. And then later on, when the house is quiet and they have slept and had their food and all, maybe then I write it down. But that is just the writing part. The actual plotting and framing and everything is being continuously done amidst that halagulla, amidst
Correct.
that chaos. Yeah.
True, 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 true. Yeah, that's
So I don't have particular, like after breakfast, I sit down for 2 hours. After dinner, I sit down for 2 hours. No, I don't follow any such schedule. That way, I am not very systematic. I am not very regular, and I just let things happen. I just let the things come and flow. And in between, as the children come and tell me something, I pick ideas from there. Maybe I could make one of the characters say what they said or talk like they did. So they are my muse. My home, the cacophony around, the surroundings I live in, these are my muse. And I cannot
wonderful.
write without them. I cannot cut off from all this, go to some stillness and write. No, I can't do that. Yeah, it's
Wonderful.
different with different people. It's individual situations for all. So for me, it's that way. But
Correct.
yes,
Wonderful.
it does help. It does
Mitra,
help if you, like Dhruba said, something you have seen. He probably has met a magistrate in his tenure in his long tenure in his career. He has probably met a magistrate or, someone in the bureaucracy who has probably killed people and he is thinking of it now and plotting it up. So yes, there should be some clue on which you build up. Am I right,
Right.
Dhruva? Okay, I'll not play the spoiler here. Let him finish his novel.
Dhrupada,
Mitra,
any comment? Yes, Jovial.
I
Rashmi,
was
actually, the sound had gone.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
sound had broken. So I was just asking you, I'm sure you have come across this particular killer magistrate that you're writing about now. So
Uh,
in your entire career.
actually, no, Rashmi, actually, what happened, there was, I'll not mention the place, but many years back, there was this firing order issued. And later on, the inquiry report said that the firing order was not necessary. So if it is
Okay.
not necessary, and then when we asked the magistrate concerned that did you find it necessary, he said, well, maybe it wasn't necessary, but I shot, I gave the firing orders. So from that spark, from that germ of that comment, when he knew that that firing order was not justified, yet he carried on. Was he basically subconsciously a killer? I thought. So I tried to
Oh,
work on that, Rashmi.
Yes,
In fact,
precisely, because
wonderful.
all of them would not have seen it this way. But he being the writer he is, he looked at it this way from the writer's perspective and not at that moment from the bureaucrat's perspective. So this is
Right.
how he built up.
true, true.
it is
Again,
like
following the core skills.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank
there
you.
is no the question why, there is but
Absolutely.
to do
Thank
and
you.
die.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay, questions
Absolutely.
are popping up.
yeah.
Questions are popping up on our screen. I can see my entire family hooked to the program. So there is one question by Mary Kalita, my elder sister, addressed to Dhrubada. And she's asking, Dhrubada, have
Oh,
you
really?
ever experienced writer's block as faced by writers often?
Mary, I faced a jovial block. When Jovial asks me a question, I get stumped.
My goodness.
That was wonderful.
Mary,
That was wonderful. Only a writer can do
Mary,
that.
I not tell you that, but then Mary, I think a writer's blog is such that if you're halfway into a story and then you stop, I would call that a writer's blog. I mean, it happens to any of us. I've got a story now which is with me now for the last, I think, 6 years. Then I had written one story in Tezpur with short story, hardly about 10 pages, with took me about 11 months. And it was all because of a writer's block. And the writer's block happens for unknown reasons, Mary. You can't really put your point down and put your finger onto a certain issue and say it's because of this that happened. But generally, it happens because I think there is a famous saying called "I've got the blues." I've got the blues. I
Yeah.
have some unknown chemical reaction within a human body. It's a huge universe, and then you are stumped. You just don't know what you're going to do or what you're going to say. Like right now, if Mitra, and Jovial keep on with these questions, I'll probably get into another block and begin to think, oh my God, what's going to happen? And yet and seriously, I'm enjoying this in the sense that, despite my words, they have been kind enough to listen to me. I'm feeling, I'm feeling happy. So, Mary, this writer's block happens. It has happened to me so many times that it is impossible to remember. But what I can say that the writer's block, I've taken it as a challenge. And the only way out is to do something totally contrary to what you are doing in your writing. You go out for a picnic, go out for a cinema, or have a small fight with Jovial. Jovial, I'm picking on you very often today, huh? You don't mind.
No problem. You can take the liberty.
Yeah, thank you, Jovial. So this writer's block is basically a very fascinating instrument to actually fight back, and I think it is a wonderful support to. It's a foil to allow you to generate after a certain period of recuperation, because calling out some of the worst if you sometimes continue writing. Although great writers, geniuses, they have this streak, continuous writing all the time. I think Albert Camus had this wonderful gift of writing at one stretch. Then I can quote many other. Raymond Carver, the great short story writer, one of the most fascinating short story writers I've read. In his biography, Jack London, these guys wrote at their stretch. They had little writer's block. But then, it depends. Again, I think Rashmi may not be having, I may be having, she may be having. Anyway, Mary, it's not a very convincing answer I've given you, because it's difficult to tackle writer's block in terms of conversational understanding. Anyway.
I would just like to remove one of Dhruba's blocks
Share
here,
light.
that Rashmi also has blocks.
Okay, good.
Yeah, one block removed, I guess, Dhruba? Yes.
I'm glad.
That reminds me that
No, Rashmi also has.
this conversation triggers a question in my mind. Like,
Yes.
the first answer that Dhruba gave, that I have a jovial block. So means humor. What I was reminded of was humor. And
Happy block.
humor,
He
I
has a
believe-
happy block.
yeah, humor, I believe, is a very important component of any story, of any narration. And I don't think humor can it be really worked upon, or does it just come naturally? I just was amazed at the way you just gave an answer all of a sudden. That I don't have a writer's block, I know a jovial block. I know that was such rich. And then Rashmi saying, I'm removing one block. So humor, how can we really work upon if we are lacking in that? Can it be really worked upon? And or how do we really integrate, know the techniques of integrating humor in any write-up, in a story, which I believe is such an important thing. When we are speaking, writing, humor is a very important thing. How do we really, ensure that we put in the right doses of those? Or your in general comments on this aspect, whether it's Rashmi or whether it's Dhruba. The importance of
I'll
humor.
just say, I would like Dhruba to answer this elaborately and in proper sense and manner. But I would just like to say one thing, humor and joviality is one thing that is enthused by the surroundings and the company you have around you. Today, I think, had it not been for Jovial and Mitra around, Dhruba could not have said he has a jovial block. Because Jovial is there, he has a jovial block. So I think humor and joviality are some things that your surroundings affect upon
One,
you. If you are
correct.
in a jovial surrounding, you are humorous. And if you are in sad and depressing surroundings, this is how you create. But thankfully for jovial today, we are all in a jovial mood.
Yeah. So humor is contagious.
It is.
Humor
That's
is,
true.
yeah,
That
You need
really
the
as
is.
much as
COVID.
laughter is, as much as laughter is.
Mhm.
Okay, but Mitra Jovial, it's so interesting. I'm smiling after a long time and laughing despite my migraine the last 2 days. But then humor, it's one of the most difficult. It's one of the most difficult exercises that I can think of. Verbal conversational humor is one thing, and that can
Yes.
be spontaneous depending, like Rashmi says. But to make humor and art in writing, like famous but evergreen, world famous and eternal PG Woodhouse, I think humor doesn't come easy. In the
Absolutely.
Northeast, I
Most
know of
difficult.
at least Kinfam Saint Nonkenri. In his poems, he brings out beautiful humor. In the ones writing in English, of course, we have others writing in other languages. I think it's a difficult profession, Mitra, to organize humor. Organized humor, it's like
Yeah.
stagecraft. You have this Kapil
Correct.
Mishra shows, and he comes out with automatic humor, and I'm stunned. I said, how do you do it? So, but occasional, once in a blue moon humor is okay, I think. But
Yeah.
structured humor and humor embodied in a novel, uh, I, I always thought, Mitra, that there were two kinds of humor in a book.
Okay.
One is what you call situational humor, and one is
Mhm.
humor in a single line. In a single line.
Mm.
Oh, we lost him again. So
Network had
by the
gone
time,
away.
yeah, by the time Dhruboda comes back, I think this is one takeaway to all the parents who are watching this or who probably who will be watching it later. That coming back to what Rashmi said, that humor is initiated by surroundings. So a happy home is very important. A happy classroom is very important, and that is a takeaway for teachers. And only when there is this happy surroundings will the humor be reflected in our actions, in our words, and maybe in our writings. Subodha, I was just trying to
Yeah,
be the filler. You
yeah.
can please carry on.
Please continue.
We are speaking of structural humor, structuring humor in a proper way.
So, Mitra,
Yeah,
you're
you were
asking me
saying it
something,
could come
Jovial?
in one sentence or you could structure it. You were saying that.
Oh, yeah. I was talking about
Mhm.
humor in this way that I mean, all of us have read, humor stuff, whether it's Asterisk or Archie or P.G. Woodhouse, like I said again, and many others too.
Mm.
But I found that humor, when I try to assess or analyze, that it could be a situational humor, or it
Mm.
could be a humor in one sentence. It could be the
Mhm.
humor of Rashmi. She's very good at punning. She's famous in our group, the Northeast Writers Forum group. Even she had recently brought out a pen club, a club called penchant. That is a French word
Penchant,
or an
penchant,
Italian word for inclination, and she made it. Yeah, penchant. It's called penchant put
penchant.
together, but she
Correct,
separated it.
correct.
So it's a song of pen now. So that humor is there, which I find very
Yeah.
brilliant because it requires a certain incisiveness into etymology, into Jovial's kind of linguistic understanding. The other one is the situational humor, and it requires a story. So when some people excel in it, some people do not. Some people have a flair for it. Some people thrive on it, and I think humor is very precious, and we have very little humor in this world. I have read just about 6 months back an article in the Hindu in which there is the writer says that humankind is more prone to loving tragedy. they prefer tragedy to humor, which is a very funny thing in a way, because if tragedy is supposed to be our, the kind of
Oh, we lost him again. I think he's back.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
there.
he is.
yeah.
Yes, Dhruba, continue.
You're
Thank you,
saying
Victor.
about we all love tragedy. You were talking of how we all love tragedy in our lives.
Dhruba, can you hear us? Hello, Dhruba. I believe we lost him again. Actually, like even sometimes I also think my husband teases me, tragedy queen, because whenever there is a movie which makes me cry and all, and I'm quite happy crying. So maybe it is. I do agree to what Dhruba said, that we have an inclination for tragedy. And yes, Dhruba, you are back. Can you hear us, Dhruba?
Yes, I
Hello,
can hear
Dhruba?
you, Mitra. I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are speaking about the
Yes,
inclination
I
of
can
our
hear.
human mind.
That connection. I can hear you. Inclination for.
The human mind's inclination towards tragedy, which actually you find it very,
Yes.
it, so
Yes, you'd find
continue.
people rushing. Yeah.
Please
That
continue,
somehow
Dhruba.
people love tragedy. People love tragedy.
Yes.
I think he cannot hear us.
For example, you look at Shakespeare's plays. You look at Shakespeare's plays. The people can rattle off the names of the tragedy plays.
Oh, the network is really playing a spoil sport.
Truant. Yes, yes.
That's the tragedy that is happening today,
That is a
actually.
tragedy.
Wonderful,
That is the
wonderful.
tragedy. No,
And
and
this tragedy is not something we like.
that's what I was coming to, This is one tragedy we're not inclined to at all. Yeah. But hopefully he will be back before we can spell tragedy. But yes,
Yeah, he's
I
back.
told you. I told you. Yeah. Okay. You were talking of Shakespeare's characters and his
Tragedies.
plays, Dhruba. The tragedies in them.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you as well, Dhruba. The Shakespearean tragedies you were talking about. There is some audio problem, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it just on my end or it's with everyone?
No. Yeah, we
No,
cannot
only
hear.
with Dhruba, I think.
I think it's with Dhruba's
Yeah.
system.
Audio visual, both.
Audiovisual both.
His video has frozen as well.
Yes. Mitra, by the way, can we take any questions from the audience in a virtual world?
Yes, absolutely. Please carry forward.
So please check your box for questions.
There is
If there are
actually
any.
a question. Yeah, I think Dhruba is back. Dhruba, can you hear us?
Yeah.
No, once again.
Rashmi
I
can
can
also
hear you.
check for questions, please. Rashmi?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, please check for questions. There might be some for you as well.
In the chat?
Well, no, we will check and let
In
them
the
know
comments.
maybe. And
In the comments. Okay.
there is actually a nice question, but I think it is aimed at Dhruba. But till we get Dhruba, maybe we can
Yeah, he's
just.
back. For the question, yeah.
Okay, I get this by Mary Kalita. This has been answered.
Yeah, again, there is a question.
And
Rashmi Sarkar.
Okay. Dhruba, can you hear us now? Hello,
Yes,
Dhruba.
I can hear you. I can hear you, Mitra.
Yeah.
Should I answer?
So now if you could
Yes, Mitra, I can.
continue
Yeah.
your Shakespearean
Yes.
tragedies and the character, whatever you was. We were losing
Yeah.
you
No,
again and again.
I was just saying that for voracious readers of Shakespeare, they would probably remember the tragedies. They would probably name the tragedies first and the comedies later. So, like in that sense, I do agree with the general view that humankind generally, has a weird fascination for tragedy, foremost, and
Agree.
then comes humor. Maybe I'm wrong, but that is a general feeling I've had.
Well, me.
And that is what I had said. So it's difficult for many people to bring out humor, and people who write humor are very gifted, I would say. They have a vision which is very, 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 very different from the rest. Very warm and gentle and kind and compassionate. Then only you can have humor.
Correct. Very true. Dhruba, I think this question is aimed at you. When you spoke about
There is
interest and
one
excitement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dhruba?
Can I answer that?
Yes,
Yes.
please.
Yeah. So, Rashmi Sarkar has asked that, I see. So, Rashmi Sarkar, you are right. You see, excitement and interest. Now, interest can be of a gentle sort, in which your emotions are not agitated to the extent that excitement can bring it. Excitement is also an emotion, but it agitates you much more than the word interest can do. Now, between excitement and interest, intellectual interest or emotional interest, intellectual excitement or emotional excitement, the complacency that you're talking about, all this self-satisfaction, can be arrived at in a creative piece by the author himself, and it requires a lot of demand on his genuine understanding of those lines or of those emotions. If those lines or those emotions happen to be superficial, if you're just writing uh,
So sad that every time we are having a break in whatever he's putting. Rashmi, I think this question is for you.
Okay, this
Okay.
is
Dhruba
okay.
is
You
back.
go
Dhruba
ahead.
is back.
Mhm.
Dhruba, continue.
so that is how. Yeah, my voice is breaking, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. We can hear you now. Proceed, Dhruba.
Yeah, no, I think it must have broken halfway. So what she said, Rashmi Sarkar said, is true, that it is not so much of self-complacency as much as self-satisfaction. The complacency comes when the reader pats you on your back. When you are telling yourself, oh yes, this is interesting. For example, now when I'm talking to you, Mitra or Rashmi Sarkar, I'm finding my own words good enough. Then I have a sense of self-satisfaction. Now, when you tell me that Mr. Hazarika, Mr. Dhruba, I find your words interesting or exciting, I get complacent. Now I have done my job. So the first satisfaction comes when I'm satisfied. The complacency comes when I can satisfy you. That is how it is for me.
Sure, wonderful. Yeah, exactly.
Wonderful.
So therefore,
Yeah,
Have
beautiful explanation.
Have I been clear enough?
yeah,
Absolutely.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So first is what's inside. We concentrate a lot on our information that we collect through our 5 sense organs. It's important, but I think the step ahead of it is your self-awareness, how you feel, being aware of your emotions, your reactions, and that's should be the journey instead of just looking outside. Looking inside is, I believe, very important, and that is
Yes.
what I gather from. That's my takeaway from whatever Dhruba said. So
Yes,
next
Mitra,
question we are putting it.
yeah.
Yeah. Yes, Dhruba, please say. Dhruba, you wanted to say something.
No. I just said that the writer has to be a very harsh critic of his own works, so that he can be satisfied. Sorry, actually, I'm repeating the same things again and again.
I love
No.
Dhrubada's perspective on the distinction that he has brought about between satisfaction and complacency. It was really
Yes,
wonderful.
absolutely.
Yeah,
It's a fine line, and he has,
yeah, beautiful
projected it
perspective.
very beautifully. Yeah,
Yeah, right.
absolutely. So this next question, this was
To
aimed
Rashmi.
at Rashmi, I believe.
Rashmi.
Yeah, Rashmi
Yes.
ma'am. What if the adult face the problem with
Yeah.
the management, as you have stated? So Sumit joins us from Bihupuria College.
Yeah, Bihupuria College. So, Sumit, first of all, you will have to understand what kind of management. Is it some kind of financial management at your end? Or is it some kind of emotional management? Or is it some kind of structural management in your status or your family circle? So you will have to sort it out what kind of management you're talking about. Only then can we look into it, I guess. And this probably is not for creative writing, this is probably for counselors, but creative writing will help you cope with this kind of, if it is in the stress level of management, whatever management. It helps you, it gives you the emotional strength. It gives you, the support system from inside. But before knowing all that, if you're deep into some kind of financial crisis, to manage that, a creativity level or creative skills inside you will help in the way that you can sort out where the crisis has come from, how to deal with it, and where maybe to put your money into or where maybe to get your money from. These will be your creative skills that will come to the fore. Maybe it is not for writing, but it will be your financial management, but you will apply your creative skills in this sector. If it is financial management, I'm guessing. But if the management is for something else, then we will have to understand what kind of management you're talking about, Sumit, and maybe then we can talk about it. Because yes, if you have creativity in you, you will put it in any place, whether it is writing or whether it is into management of your home, your family, your finances, your career, anything. Because you have that, you have that edge in you. You have that, you have that spank in you to put things differently. And these are such times that everyone is looking out for something different. Everyone is doing everything, but within that everything, people are looking out for variety or something different. If you put your creative skills into being that different, into bringing in that variety, then I think you have an edge in your management skills. Again, coming back to the same thing, you will have to know first which part of management is bothering you as an adult. Yes, I hope I am okay with it. And if I am not, Sumit, please feel free to again put another question. And if I can help, if I could help, I'll be glad.
So well said.
Jovial, should we just take up one more question?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Are there any
Okay. So,
questions?
yeah, there is one. I think again, this is aimed at Rashmi, where she spoke about encouraging questions in children right from a very early age, and never discouraging and labeling a question as a stupid question. So
Okay.
here there is probably a parent who I think her comment is in two parts. So I'll just read it out. Asking a question is a
Yes.
different thing, but what about the answers, which we
Which
never
will
get? And many a times even our parents do not know the answer, or maybe it's a child student asking, and they say something that is off the track. I can very well relate to this. Even I've given such crap answers sometimes to awkward questions that my daughters have asked.
But this is a very pertinent question.
But a very pertinent
Yes, this
question.
is true.
Yes. So your
And
comments on
many a times even our parents don't know the answer, and they say something that is totally off track. I think before I answer this question, I would have loved to see your face, whether you are a parent or you are the child of a parent, because, in that manner, maybe I would have answered the question. Because um, if your parents
Our
don't know,
parents, yeah,
There
many
has
a
been
times even our parents. So
our
probably,
parents, no, but
uh,
yes, probably it is he or she, her or his parent, but
uh,
maybe I don't know the age of this person who is asking the question. So yes,
yeah,
maybe your parents don't know the question, so maybe you could have put the question in a different manner, because there are times, I'm just giving you an example. We are immigrants into the digital world. We are not natives here. So if someone comes and asks me something about the digital world, about technology, I will have absolutely no answer to give. So probably that way, the person, whoever is asking me, the enlightening path, is asking for some questions to the parents, and which is, yes, like the parents also are not aware of what he or she is asking about. Definitely, the parents will not be able to answer.
true.
or
Uh,
or maybe if the person can give us the question, maybe between the four of us, among the four of us, maybe we could just try putting it out somewhere. The enlightening path, would you like to enlighten us with whatever questions your parents could not answer? Maybe we could enlighten you a bit more.
and that makes me feel like parenting also asks for so much of creativity, because many a times we have to keep a straight face and give an answer with such a confident way, which we know is a crap answer.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's precisely story writers are born. That's precisely where all story writers are born. Because the
Rashmi,
first
you've got
story, I
another
guess,
question. Rashmi, you've got another question
yes,
from
yes,
Bhagmita
please,
Hondiko.
Jovial.
Yeah, from Bhagmita Hondiko. How to
Bhagmita
make
Hande,
live
how to make live English classes more fun as well as good for the students of class 10 and 8, especially grammar classes. Okay. Hey, Bhagmita, I should have told this right at the beginning of the session. Yes, I missed it out. I would have loved to deal with this entire session from the perspectives of a writer and not an academician. Dhruba and I are both from economics background. So we are not into literature, we're not into English. However, this question is, of course, open to all. It is not about academics. English classes can actually be more fun, especially for this age group you're talking about, for class 8 and 10.
10 and 8.
Es- 10 and 8, yeah, 8 and 10 and 10 and 8, it's okay. Especially grammar, okay, especially grammar classes, yes. I think we could put some games kind of there, So one child puts in a word and someone else adds a sentence, makes a sentence with that word. And then the next person changes the voice of that sentence, and the next person changes the tense of that sentence. Maybe you could form a game kind of. So in the process, the kids are playing games, and for children between 8 and 10, I think they're mostly into their phones, and these days it is all about online classes. So maybe you could put all of these, if you are a teacher, you could put all your students for your grammar class in a Zoom session or whatever, in an online cluster. And then you put the game forward. This is going to be fun for them, I believe. And if you can, the laptops and computers come with a lot of applications now. You can also download some of them, put in a lot of videos and music and animations. That's going to be interesting. And then you can ask your students, if you are a teacher or if you are a parent of children who are going to class 8 and 10. If you are a parent, you can also download apps into your computer and make them create stories and make them create these games and spread it and share it among their friends and their classmates, so the game gets more interesting. And because they are into gaming, they should be able to. And there are apps that help you make animation movies. So let them apply all that. put some music into it. So this is going to be a really fun game. And now as I'm talking, I'm thinking, my God, I can also do that. We four can do it, in fact.
Absolutely.
So, Bhagmita, is it all right? Is it all right? This is how grammar classes
Definitely
can be
it
more
is.
fun, I think.
Definitely it is, yeah.
Definitely it
Rashmi has,
is.
Rashmi has already endeared herself to a lot of parents, teachers, and students as well.
Absolutely. Exactly. And I was wondering, coming from economics background, not an
Yes,
academic background, and yet she gave such a,
wonderful.
perfect answer, and which there is no answer beyond it. Just one
Yes,
more point, Bhagavita, I would like you to remember as a teacher always. And coming back to what Rashmi ma'am had said in the beginning, you know what? Entire creativity, everything starts with a question that will make them observe, a question that will make them think. And that is the base for, cooking up anything, whether it is observation in terms of a science class, an experiment, or observation as is required by a writer, which the 2 points that, in fact, when Rashmi spoke of CORE, her second point was observation, if I recollect well. So observation is the base on which you build up. So therefore, and these observations will be built up in a class, will be triggered by just one pertinent question, one creative question that the teacher might ask. I would like you to remember this always, that please know what to ask. We are not supposed to influence, we are not supposed to tell them what to think, but we are supposed to guide them in how to think. And that how very often is triggered by a question. So
Yes,
maybe
yes.
we'll take the next question, uh, which is Dibjyoti asking, how do we go about using creative writing to educate people on non-fictional and factual information? What are the best practices we can adopt? Like anyone, whoever wishes to take Jugoda or Rashmi.
Is it our very own duty?
Yes, it's our
Yes,
very own
that's what I
Dibjyoti.
was about to ask.
Great.
How do you go about using creative writing to educate people on non-fictional factual information? I think Dhruba can answer that well. What are the best practices we can adopt?
Rashmi, you're putting the tough ones to me.
No, because it is about factual information,
Yeah.
and you had your experience with you. I am a total liar.
So well said.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dibjuti, it's very coincidental that just about, I think, 10 days back, I got hold of a beautiful script about how creative writing, makes people, not creative writing necessarily, but creative reading of fiction, poetry can make a person better. There was no such analysis done earlier, as far as I'm aware, but I shared this with Rashmi. Rashmi, do you remember I sent you that clip
You did. You
about
did.
how creative? Yeah,
Yes.
I did. So that would be one day
Yes.
probably, Dibjuti, we can exchange mails or WhatsApp numbers, and I can share that with you. So that's one.
Yes.
But
Yes.
writing, how do we go about creative writing to educating people on non-fictional factual information? What are the best practices we can adopt? See, Dibjuti, I think everything in this world of ours is creative. There is this 17th century writer called Clara Reeve, CLARA
Did we lose?
Clara Reeve,
Is it that?
who wrote a book called The Progress of Romance. What is romance? What is a novel she wrote? And she said that half our life we go about seeking what is this thing called creativity. And some people bypass it
Oh,
thinking that the other creative person are better than your own personal life. Well, now you'll see that some people go about life without writing, without any sort of any attempt at any of these arts, but his or her life is absolutely beautiful. And you begin to think, at least I used to think that how is it that his life is so beautiful, he seems to have it structured so well, whereas my life is
oh, we are losing Dhruboda very often. I
You know
wish
what
I
I
hope.
feel about
Yeah.
Debutty? I was just thinking when Dhruba was talking. Now I'm just putting in my thing as a filler. All these advertisements and all these catchy slogans and all that we have, they are actually creative writing. They're creative writing people use, the advertising world uses to educate people, or maybe not educate, to make them aware of products and things they would like people to know about. So this is creative writing, and this is what they're using to share factual information. But you cannot just say, buy my product. No one will buy, come on. But they use a jingle. They use a smart tagline. They use a smart song. That is all creative writing, I think. And in the process, within that, they will put all facts and informations about their product, and we are ready to buy them.
Correct. Correct.
So I guess
Dhruboda, would
that
you like
is
to
one thing.
continue? Yeah.
That is one way
Sorry.
how you can use creative writing to educate people, and just that way, in similar way, there are songs. During election times, a lot of songs come up, a lot of slogans come up that you have to uh, give your vote. Don't let your vote go waste. This is factual information. You are educating people about your voting rights, about your citizenship rights. You are using creative products, you are using creative pieces to educate the people. So these are instances where you use creative writing, and this is how you use creative writing to educate people. And these are things that have been in the use for so long.
Mitra,
And these are
Yeah.
non-fictional and factual information. Yes.
yeah, Mitra, talking about the world of advertisement, Rashmi has talked about creativity. At times, they they structure the slogans or the taglines in such a conspicuous manner that we are deceived as well. In a sense, they commit the fallacy of hasty generalization. For example, when Servo advertises, this city runs on Servo, as if Servo is the only lubricant available in the city. There are other brands as well. But once you see the ad,
Yeah.
you feel as if, Servo is the only one. This city runs on
Mm.
Servo. So that's really creativity, of course, because it attracts the customers, potential customers, prospective customers. And so people feel that, well, Servo is number one. This entire city, all the vehicles in the city run only on Servo. So there are also,
Yeah. And
subtle fallacies which are committed
yes.
by when you actually try to be creative. You are creative, of course,
Mm.
but then you have an end to achieve, and the end is actually
Yes.
to attract the customers, prospective
To
customers.
attract the
Well,
customer.
Rashmi, you've got
And
another question.
as we are talking of all these things, Jovial,
Right.
everything in this world is not in airtight compartments. There's a
Exactly.
spillage
Exactly.
of
Right.
everything into everything. So when we
Right.
are
Right.
talking of advertising, when we're talking of creative writing, when we're talking of educating people and factual information,
Right.
non-fictional writing, and
Right.
then we're using advertising gimmick, entrepreneurship, they're all overlapping. We cannot
Right.
put
Right.
them in airtight compartments.
I agree with you.
So,
I agree.
yes, this is why the world is the way it is. Yeah.
Right. Right. I agree with you. Rashmi, you've got another question.
Oh my, yes, what is it? Okay. While writing a story, when we express anything, which way is better, to write it using more words or less? Arunima, it is not about the number of words you are using. It is about what feelings you are expressing. If what you wish to express needs more words, go on, use all the words you want to use. But if what you want to express can be expressed in just about this much, then use just about this much. It is not about how many words, unless, of course, you're writing a column for a newspaper that every week or every fortnight you have to submit 500 words. Then, of course, that is different. But if you're writing a story and you are precisely stating here while writing a story, it is not about the number of words. Feel free, go ahead to use as many words and don't keep a track of words. Keep a track of what emotions you're expressing, of what feelings you're expressing, and whether your feelings are running over. That should not be. Whether your plot is spilling over, that should not be. You should keep the plot in its place. You should be comfortable describing your character, the situation, and everything. And then forget about the words. You think about your expressions. Yes. And go ahead and write a beautiful story. Forget about the number of words. Is that all right, Arunima?
Such a convincing answer.
Absolutely. Do we have Dhruba around? There is a question for Dhruba. How to become an IPS officer? So I wish Dhruba comes back. Yeah, there we have Dhruba back. Or did we lose him again? Add to stream. Dhruba, here is a specific question for you. Not on creative writing, but someone who is probably looking for some motivation, inspiration, and a way forward to become an IPS officer. She seeks the answer from a retired IAS officer. Who better to say?
Right.
Yes.
So, Madam Benita Sonar, I did not think I looked so strict. I'm not basically a retired police officer, but I'm from the other service, the administrative service. And this is actually a question that has been put to us several times. I would feel that,
We are losing Dhruba
so that is how
quite often, and it's so sad that we cannot get. Yeah, Dhruba, you are back with a bang.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Did you hear me answering Benita Sonar? No.
No.
Huh. Oh yeah. No, I was answering to this question from Madam Benita Sonar that she has mistaken me for an IPS officer. I didn't think that I'd look so strict, but then to face the exams, the civil service exams, one has to be very sincere. One has to be very diligent, structure yourself into facing the kind of the process, the examination process itself. This is a question that when I was in the Public Service Commission, they used to ask me very often. And this was the stock answer I used to give. The ultimate weapon is your own sincerity. How sincere you are, to the depth of your sincerity is very important. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that is the mother of all facts, that diligence and sincerity in whatever you do, in whatever. That could be even the parenting at home, the cooking of a dish for lunch, or anything. I think these
or the cooking of a story.
Oh, wonderful.
Right.
Absolutely. Okay, I think Jovial, it's 6:37 and we should be winding up.
Yes. But before you give the brief overview with your valedictory note, I just like to, kind of thank particularly Dipjyoti. He had tried very hard, despite the technical hitches that we had faced quite intermittently. Dhruba is on screen, off screen. But anyway, it was quite an enlightening and very interesting session that we had. And most importantly, I got to see Rashmi and Dhruba after a long time, Rashmi for the first time. Of course, she was my classmate, it's a different thing altogether. But then I've seen her after several decades, 3 decades, more than 3 decades, in fact.
Yeah.
So it's really nice. And now I'd like to request our Mitra ma'am to kindly wind up, give a brief overview, and with a valid treatment.
Jovial, sorry for
Yes, of
jumping,
course. Yes,
but
he wants to say something. Yeah.
I just want to, because I'm to thank both of you and Rashmi and Dipjyoti for giving me, or Rashmi probably speak. Thank you very much, and thanks to the audience for being patient and listening to me. Thank you so much. That's all.
Mitra, by
Rashmi,
the
any
way,
thoughts?
Mitra, kindly check whether our principal sir is still around. If he's there, we need to thank him as well.
Oh,
Is he
He
there?
isn't.
we didn't see
No, he isn't there.
that.
But then,
Okay.
in spite of that, he does deserve our thank you and a gratitude
Yeah,
note.
sincere gratitude. Right. Yeah, go ahead, Mitra.
Yeah. Before I go ahead, is there anything that Rashmi wants to just maybe say it as a concluding comment?
Thank you, each of you,
One.
Mitra and Jovial, and Dhruba
Yeah.
and Digjyoti behind the scene. And just one thing I'd like to tell Dhruba, you know what? We three are batchmates, meeting
Oh,
after a long
Really?
time. I see them after a long time. Yeah. So no,
Then, oh,
no
then,
wonder I'm
then
going back very jovial after this.
Okay, Dipjyoti is my batchmate. Okay.
So this is really a big thanks to all of you.
Right.
Wonderful.
Truly. Yeah.
Okay, so I was having actually a cold feet thinking of what would happen today evening. I mean, lost amidst all the magicians playing with words and vocabulary, and me limited to the realms of science, maybe. And I realized as the panelists spoke and as the discussions emerged that it's just interdisciplinary. Because if we say what's the base of an experiment, of a scientific behavior, and that is the first step is observational skills. The ability to connect what I studied in theory and what I observed. The ability to reflect on the findings and to express it in a new way, probably. So it's so interdisciplinary, and it cannot be put into two different compartments. So my fears are allayed, and I enjoyed the evening thoroughly, and the beautiful insights that I received. Dhruba, the way he was quoting from all the writers and the books reminded me of a story that my colleague had said, that there was one person whom he had met in IIM, and he was like Dhruba and Rashmi. They were so fluent with his words, and he was giving a quote from here, a quote from there, and the person, my friend, asked, how is it that you're able to speak in such a way? So then he told him a story that, listen, I had constructed a house, and in that house, I wanted to make a beautiful toilet, and it was such an object of my dream that I decided that I'm going to put golden taps encrusted with diamonds, and he did it. But then the first day he wanted to use the toilet, he opened that diamond encrusted gold 24 carat gold tap, and the water did not come out. Why? Because the overhead tank had no water. So first, I think a takeaway from all that Rashmi and Dhruba has said, that first fill your overheads with the right kind of vocabulary, use your curiosity to trigger the right kind of thoughts, express them, and of course, do not forget to imagine. And if I may say, and bring forward something that I often tell at my school to my parents, what World Economic Forum had put forward in 2016 as a 21st century skills. And without referring to that WEF draft document, we have referred to all those elements here this evening, because WEF 21st century skills enlists creativity, which we spoke about so beautifully. We spoke about communication, and communication is again another aspect that is lined up in that document prepared by WEF in 2016. And therefore, creative writing is not something that should be pursued only by a student of literature, only by someone who is probably interested in English, but creative writing, like Dipjyoti said, it is also can be used effectively for presenting facts, for presenting non-fiction. Creative writing is required everywhere. It's just such an important part and parcel of our life. Thank you, and God bless each one of you till we meet again. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, Dhruva. Bye-bye, Rashmi. Bye, Mitra. We'll be looking forward to more such interactive sessions,
Thank you.
webinars and all.
Yes. Yes,
And
we'll
I'll be
catch
surely
up.
there. Thank you once again.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dhruva.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rashmi. Thank you, Mitra.